Delcy Rodriguez, the Vice President of Venezuela, in defiant mode, told the World Court here in The Hague that nothing, not even the court, will prevent Venezuela from going ahead with its referendum on December 3rd. That referendum, Guyana says, is intended to be used as a trigger to seize or annex 2/3 of Guyana's territory. And when the results of that referendum is known after December 3rd, Delcy Rodriguez also said that the state of Venezuela will not go back on what its people decide. In court, she made incredible claims about Guyana and its motive for bringing the case to this court.
The line of action is clearly that of judicial colonialism. Consequently, on the basis of the UN Charter and the statute of this court, Venezuela reaffirms its categorical rejection of Guyana's audacious action to interfere in its internal affairs. Nothing will prevent the referendum scheduled for the 3rd of December from being held. Today, Guyana dares to distract this court once again in an attempt to prevent Venezuelans from exercising their sacred right to vote on an issue that is specific to them, internal, and of considerable importance, such as the dispute over the Essequibo. They will not succeed.
Guyana has prepared for a military attack against Venezuela with the support of its strategic and geopolitical ally, the United States. You can see on the screen the content and the photography. This was the meeting between Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and the President. They signed an agreement for the security in the region that threatens Venezuela. All of this apparent and illegal behavior have shown the true face of Guyana, an aggressor state, a predator of natural resources, and a violator of international law. In no way a victim.
Attorney General Anil Nandlal has been attending these hearings in The Hague at the World Court. Today he sat a mere few feet away from where Delcy Rodriguez made her incredible claims about Guyana and its reason for bringing the border controversy case to this World Court, a principal organ of the United Nations, for a full and final settlement to the controversy. He said that as a sovereign nation, Venezuela can undertake any referendum it chooses, but it cannot undertake a referendum that seeks to dictate action that will violate the sovereignty and territorial integrity of another state.
We are not seeking to stop a legitimate constitutional internal process of a sovereign nation. That's not what we're doing. Their entire presentation was directed on that we are trying to stop Venezuela and the people of Venezuela from expressing their democratic right to participate in a constitutional process authorized by their constitution and authorized by their legal process and democratic procedures. Not at all, we are not doing that. All we are saying that you cannot use your internal constitutional mechanism to ask questions or to demand actions that are going to interfere with the territorial sovereignty of our country and will interfere with issues that are directly for the consideration and determination of this court. So we are asking to rephrase the questions. Ask questions that will not undermine and subvert not only the legal process, but will interfere with our territorial rights and our territorial sovereignty. We are asking also that, assuming that the court says, well, we can't permit them, we can't prohibit them, at least the court must say something about their ability to enforce those referendum questions. because the enforcement of those referendum questions will involve an annexure, invasion, and occupation of territory that is lawfully Guyana's and territory that is the subject of the court proceedings. And every court must have a jurisdiction to protect its process, the integrity of proceedings before it, and to protect itself from abuse, from actions that will be inimical and that are inconsistent with the court's process and the issues that are before the court. All countries that signed on to the UN Charter, Venezuela is one of them, are bound to accept the processes of the UN. This court is the principal judicial organ of the United Nations. If we are speaking about living in a world of peace, living in a world governed by the rule of law, then countries have to submit themselves despite the fact that you are sovereign nations. The United Nations was formed where everyone agreed to some extent to submit themselves to the organs, processes, and charter of the United Nations. Now, if Venezuela wants to travel the road of being a rogue nation, well, there are sanctions that will have to flow. And we will have to continue to prosecute our case internationally and at those international fora and seek enforcement support from those international organizations. I don't believe that the world will sit idly by and allow a participant in a court proceedings at this level to, when they lose, to disregard and disrespect the court process. The fact that they have submitted themselves, though unwillingly, I believe make them to be bound by the processes and decisions of the court.
After 2 days of hearings from Guyana and then from Venezuela, the court has now to consider the merits of the arguments presented by both parties. It is expected to make a ruling, the president of the court said, as soon as possible. Guyana is hoping that that ruling will come before Venezuela's December 3rd referendum. Reporting for the newsroom, I'm Neil Marks in The Hague.